Hello, New Zealand. Welcome to Political Playback, and it's episode number 54, 30th of October. And good evening, Simon O'Connor. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm slightly confused, though, in the best sense, in that I've done podcasts today on everything from new civil liberties groups to age verification. And
Oh,
now I'm acting as a nurse to my wife and about to be the cook for my stepchildren. So let's see how this goes.
nothing like a good trad husband, as they say. I might ring
That's
Kate Hannah just to warn her. Anyway, the Disinformation Project. All right, we've got a few topics to get through. So, look, I'd really like to get into it firstly. There is some breaking news, which we'll come to in a moment, because one of your colleagues, I think, might be a little bit annoyed, but we'll come back to that in just a second. And it's the image of the day, and it's Radio New Zealand. Of course, you know, they walk down the street at these protests, and look who they just happened to run into. I mean, who would have thought that out of 100,000 people marching throughout the world, throughout New Zealand, that they would just happen to feature Chloe Shawbrick, their favourite MP. But anyway, good old taxpayer-funded Radio New Zealand. But anyway, the question is, the mega strike gone very quiet. Where are we at, Simon? What does Parliament think of these mega strikes?
in many ways that the MPs won't care, and that'll be across all sides of the House. They just see this as increasing performative theatrics, if that's not a tautology. But it's achieved very little other than massive disruption to Kiwis' lives, particularly those with kids. I suppose on the plus side, a lot of them got
And
5 days
sicknesses?
off and sicknesses. Oh, look,
Mm,
all of
mm.
that. But I don't think it's actually achieved anything. And then this week, there's been a blend of some iwi groups and unions protesting and blocking roads. And again, my view, I mean, protest is meant at one level to be heard, seen, and disruptive. But you can't help, or I can't help but think now, these strikes, these mega strikes, are really designed not to actually affect change with the government, but just to annoy ordinary New Zealanders.
Well, it certainly seems that way when you have a committee meeting of the PPTA leading up to the strike, and the first item on the agenda is Palestine. I mean, I think that said everything. I thought they really destroyed their credibility when that bit of information came out. It didn't surprise me, though.
No, it didn't surprise me either. I mean, look, to be blunt about it, everything is being seen through a Palestinian lens now, which
Mm.
shows the absurdity in and of itself. And look, to be further blunt, because that's possibly the mood I'm in, most of these people who talk about Palestine have no idea. They couldn't even point it out on a map. It doesn't mean they're not allowed to have an opinion, but again, it really just shows their motivations are awry. And you would have expected the nurses and doctors to be talking about healthcare, the
Mm.
teachers about obviously wages and conditions and student outcomes, but no,
Mm.
it was around all the usual, if you will, woke issues from climate change to Palestine and everything in between. It's just, yeah, it tells you all you need to know.
Okay, I don't like hearing that you're blunt, because you're supposed to be a nurse tonight, and nurses are supposed to
All
have
right.
empathy for their patients. So I better warn Rachel. All right, let's just deal with the breaking story. And this is one of your ex-colleagues, Andrew Bailey. So he was a cabinet minister, and it's just he's the MP for Port Waikato, and he stood down as a member of cabinet because he placed a hand on a staff member's arm during an animated discussion. He apologised. No formal complaint, no formal investigation, and yet he felt that he had no option but to stand down as a cabinet minister. I mean, this to me just sort of stinks of actually the bosses don't like your performance, and so they take this as an excuse. I mean, he will be pretty disgruntled, won't he?
Yeah, this is very untidy. And look, thanks for letting me know. It was only a few minutes ago, so I'm still
Mm,
wrapping my head around it. So, look, a couple of quick observations. I mean, it does look like he's been misled. Suggestions
mm,
coming out of the Department of Internal Affairs, which oversees ministers, doesn't govern them, but just oversees their conduct.
mm.
Put allegations to him, which, as you've noted, didn't exist. They
No.
probably then informed the Prime Minister's office around that, who arguably they too have been misled. So I think it's right that Andrew is feeling angry and frustrated. But there is, I think, an element too that this was seen as a time to move him on. He had another allegation earlier. In fact, if you wanted to put up that image, that loser sign was from another discussion. Was it months or weeks prior? He'd been at a
Yeah.
winery. And again, he says joshing around with this people on a Friday and just saying, you know, why are you still working and you're a loser, hence the
Yeah.
Labour MP mocking him. So there was a few issues, and you can't help but think that actually the ninth floor, the Prime Minister and the office were happy to move him on. didn't like what was going on or didn't like his performance, whatever. But the other last thing, it's quite something that he's choosing to go public on this. I don't think the ninth floor, the Prime Minister's team will be happy. And that's not saying he shouldn't try to actually defend his name and reputation. But I would hazard a guess either he's just done this on his own bat, or if he had informed people that had been telling him, don't do it, don't make noise, let bygones be bygones. But I think he's decided, no, you've attacked my reputation, I'm going to push back.
Okay, well, certainly legal action, and he was told that there were 3 people that corroborated the incident, and so it was like 3 people against his one word. It's kind of the nasty side of politics that really I really struggle with. Look, even if it's your political enemy, I just think there needs to be a fairness, and justice needs to be seen to be done, and often that doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't, and this is actually a good illustration of it, Bob, and that, in effect, a member of the public's made some serious accusations. People are being prepared to run with that without the evidence, it appears. Media were happy to jump on. In fact, you remember a day or two afterwards, there was a disastrous interview by Luxon about whether Bailey should resign or not. This will now become a further problem because questions will now be asked, what did the Prime Minister and his office know or not know? Were they misled, just like Andrew was, or did they know more and didn't act, as you've intimated and I've sort of touched on as well? Did they seize on this to go, this is a time to push someone out that they didn't like or felt was underperforming? And as I say too, it's a news headline that governments don't want, but Andrew, as an MP, and I know him, I like Andrew, he's clearly said, I'm speaking out on this, and I suspect he's been told by many in the party, go quiet, just let it be, but he clearly hasn't. And by the way, that's his right.
And I mean, for me personally, I didn't like the way Melissa Lee was dealt with when she was Minister of Broadcasting, because I felt that she was towing the party line, which was that the government weren't going to bail out the media, and she lost her role because of that. And since then, the government has not bailed out the media. So, I felt she got the short, sharp shift, but I guess that is politics. Anyway, let's get into our topics for today. And obviously it's been a good day for Luxon because he's got to meet the big boss, the leader of the free world, Donald Trump. And he's gone to APEC and to ASEAN. He's in a New Zealand Defence Force plane, which actually made it. So, everything is looking up. Do these visits really count? What's the benefit of all this, Simon?
Oh, these really do count. Leader to leader summits are important, whether they're formal or like this meeting that he had, very informal, what they call policides. Look, they do help everything from just putting a face to names, creating some sort of relationship and banter. And look, that's something that Luxon actually does very well. He is very good at the sort of schmoozing, for want of a better term, with various leaders. And look, it just helps promote agendas. And put really, really simply, if a leader can get on well with another leader, often policies can change. Trump's a wild card, though, so while I'm pleased for Christopher that he's got his photo, I mean, he will have that on his desk, I have no doubt, and it was positive. It sounds like he related quickly and well to Trump. That is excellent, but it's Trump. He's a wild card, so if you're sitting there going, well, the 15% tariffs on New Zealand disappear and other things, maybe Trump's feeling good, but Trump's loyal to no one but himself. So long way of saying he might have enjoyed this chat with Luxon, but won't necessarily think twice about it. But we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I was just going to ask, has there been any news about the tariffs? I mean, obviously that could be a major win for Luxon if he can get Trump to drop the tariffs in relation to New Zealand. Has there been any hint that might come? It hasn't happened with other countries, has it?
No, there's been no hint. It's speculative. It's how long's a piece of string. I mean, the question's a good one, but from what we have garnered, the 10 minutes that Trump and he had were basically talking golf, probably mutual backslapping on a few things. I would be surprised had Luxon touched on such a touchy and substantial topic like tariffs. But even if they did, why does Trump need to change them? And if he does it for New Zealand, then other countries go, well, hold on, what's this all about? There's a whole lot of complications. That fact that New Zealand didn't recognise Palestine, that probably would help. Trump has no time for countries that did. But Trump's, I say, a wild card, Bob. You can have the nicest conversation with him, and the next minute he's giving you a boot.
Yeah. Okay. And Dean quite rightly notes, and I don't know if you noted as well, is that they obviously went to the same tie person because look at that, matching ties. Hey.
Yes.
I mean, how does that work? That's almost like a collaboration of uniforms, clash of uniforms. Anyway, interesting one to watch.
It's probably just coincidence, probably is, but there's a small chance that actually, in sort of ego-based politics, that Luxon's handlers went right quickly find a...
Yeah. What's the thumbs up at the same time? Is that coordinated? I mean, this is important stuff, Simon.
Well, very Trump. Trump's a big one for doing the thumb up. But so look, Luxon loves this stuff, and he's allowed to. He's prime minister. But this is what he likes of the job, schmoozing.
Yeah. Well, he's invited Trump down to play golf, and he's offered John Key to post him around the golf course, apparently. So there we go, introducing past prime ministers. All right, let's have a look. So that was Trump and Luxon. Let's have a look at Winston versus Luxon. Bit of a stir because Christopher Luxon put together this deal, and he said, "I've just done a great deal." And after he tweeted at Winston Peters' account, said we. Well, I guess there's two aspects to this. Firstly, is he correct that it's we, given that he's the foreign minister and he's part of the coalition government? And secondly, is he undermining the leader by doing that? I think this tweet was deleted since, and there's some argument that he may not have done it personally, that it was done by a staffer. But anyway, let's imagine that he did it. Is he undermining the boss, but is he correct by saying we?
Yeah, both. I mean, look, I talked about this on Solid Ground this morning, and let's not over egg it. It's not the biggest issue, but it's slightly insightful in terms of also the egos of both men in this case. So perhaps starting there. Personally, if I was Christopher Luxon and his staffers, I would not have said I've done it. Trade deals are usually led by the Minister of Trade, so Todd McClay, the Foreign Affairs ministers involved, lots of people, really leaders. Just come in at the very last moment and shake a hand and sign, and it's quite symbolic. So quite an overreach by Christopher to claim it, I've done this. And it's obviously...
But that's typical of Luxon, isn't it? Because he does that often, doesn't he? He likes to take the credit.
He does. It is part of his personality, I suppose. At one level, it's probably served him well in the corporate space. But in politics, believe it or not, a little bit of humility goes a long way, because there'll be lots of bruised egos. I suspect even the likes of Todd McClay are going, well, hold on a moment. I mean, they'll never say it out loud, but you have not done the deal. And to claim that you have, and for Winston, is it really a big deal? No, but he had to make it one, even though he's deleted the text, and he's undermining it again. It looks that fractious element that people are always looking out for in terms of the coalition. So again, untidy, unnecessary. Look,
I think I take my hat off to the fact that the three of them, the coalition, have lasted 2 years. They've got a lot done. They've still been a little bit stroppy to each other, and they're still operating together. I mean, the media wrote them off and said it wouldn't last a couple of months. So, I think credit to them. They're just acting like typical politicians, and it's just going to get a bit more fractious as we head towards the election. My big question is, when is the gloves going to come off? When does kind of the real battle begin between Peters and Seymour? But anyway, we will watch that one. All right, let's move on.
Year.
February, yeah, that's true. Yeah, election year. Yeah. Okay,
election year, it's all on.
So let's sum up. 3 News put together a nice little collage of the on-again, off-again relationship between Labor and a capital gains tax.
Flirtation's been going on for decades. Treasury suggested one back in 1989, and the Labor Finance Minister David Cagle talked about carve-outs.
Family homes will not be subject to any form of capital gains tax.
But the chatter went into hibernation for more than 2 decades until Phil Goff woke it up.
Labor's plan is a bold one. It's a game changer, which creates greater fairness.
But it tripped him up.
Show me the money!
And when Shearer replaced him, the policy continued.
We like them.
When Cunliffe replaced him, the policy survived.
Everybody who should earn a fair share pays a fair share.
But it continued to plague the party, so when Andrew Little took over, he took the knife to it in 2015.
I don't care how many houses you own. What people want to know is that people are going to be treated fairly.
A stance continued by Jacinda Ardern, who, as Prime Minister, opened the door by launching a tax working group, but then slammed that door shut.
I won't allow it to happen as Prime Minister.
When Hipkins replaced her, the door opened again.
Everything comes back onto the table, and that includes a discussion around tax.
But he moved it from the table to the bonfire in 2023.
The government will not be introducing any major new taxes. We won't be rocking the boat by introducing major new taxes. I have made that absolutely clear.
Before it rose from the ashes again today, although today wasn't the plan.
Not today. No, it wasn't going to be today.
Okay, so it was a bit of a botch up in terms of the leaking of the actual policy, which I think, boy, they need to get on top of that. Otherwise, all their policies are going to be leaked before time. But 2023, he says, no capital. I mean, this is a bit that gets me, Simon, is that it's the one policy where they are all over the place. They just won't land on it. And it makes you wonder whether it's political expediency or whether it's the principle of the matter. It's a good tax or it's a bad tax. And they need to make a decision. And just before you comment, I thought that, so this is taken from I've started following their Facebook page just for entertainment. I'm following Nationals as well, just to be balanced. And this was the image, and it says breaking, new policy, free doctors' visits. Now that is completely misleading, and I should really take them to the Advertising Standards Authority because it's not free doctors' visits. It's only 3 a year. And the other thing I find really interesting is that they're giving the three free visits, say that 3 times fast, the 3 free visits to all the rich dudes, all the rich and wealthy, what did Cullen call them? Rich pricks, pardon the language, which I found very funny for a left-wing party, giving welfare to our richest people. Anyway, what do you think about, what's the story with Labor and capital gains tax?
Well, I should say at the outset, and it won't surprise anyone, I mean, I oppose capital gains tax. I think it's a mad idea for a number of reasons. But Labor loves them. So, yep, the door's open, closing, but that's just the pragmatism of politics. And so Chris Hipkins, he loves a capital gains tax. They all love it on the left. In fact, they love more than just capital gains taxes. They tax all and everything they can.
Tax.
Yeah, it's the old Winston Churchill analogy of, believing that you can tax your way to prosperity is like a man who thinks he can haul himself up in a bucket. And so, look, again, my bias is clear on this. I just don't believe in trying to tax all and everything. I think people are allowed to get ahead. But Labor loves it. And the only reason they've pulled back in the past is pragmatics of politics. They know that Kiwis, by and large, don't want it. So this time they're trying to blindside you, trick you, bribe you, whatever word you want to put in there, by saying this is about free doctor's visits. 3 free doctor visits for everyone every year, so that you will focus on what appears to be a positive without realizing that actually most of you will be paying for it in the background.
And the other thing I would add, that whenever a politician tells me that tax money that they get from something is going to be ring-fenced for a certain purpose, I think that's a load of rubbish. I hear that all the time about car registrations, vehicle registrations, and all going to go towards certain things. It just goes into a big slush fund, and it all just goes where the government has priority. Now, once again, I was looking at the social media. So this is how Labor were pitching it: 3 free doctor's visits a year for everyone. So at least they told the truth. National, nearly $100 to see a doctor. And then National responded and said, well, what are they saying here? They'll tax a batch in Gisborne because batches will be caught, but a rental in Harada. Actually, I didn't get this. Can you explain this one to me? This was put out by National. I've actually got a degree in tax, and I thought this was a really confusing meme.
It's not a particularly good meme. I've only just seen it now, but what I think they're trying to say is that a capital gains tax is going to land equally on looking on the black strip on, some wealthy, to quote Michael Cullen, rich prick with their little batch in Gisborne, as much as the mum and dad who have their little rental property in Hara are just trying to get ahead. So they're trying to make a split between those, if you will, who got batches versus the mum and dads using some of their
investment
investments
properties
to have a
are
rental
caught,
property.
though. That's what I thought. Investment properties, if they'd said an ownership in Hawera, I would understand, but they've got a rental. So this is a family that's got an investment home, which will be caught as a capital gains.
But both will be caught. So national, again, it's not so much it's clever, it's just too subtle. Both are caught by capital gains tax, but they're trying to say there's a difference, or they're trying to suggest there's a difference between the mum and dad in Hawera with their investment property and someone with their wealthy batch in Gisborne.
Yeah.
So it's not particularly effective. But look, this just begins to illustrate the problems, what's in, what's out, who's administrating it. There's no such thing as free. No government, doesn't matter if it's blue or red, who tells you something's free, is lying through their teeth. It's taxpayer money. And the last thing, because there's 50,000 problems with this policy, other than, of course, by the way, when was the last time any of our viewers tried to get to a doctor, let alone now giving 3 free visits? Madness. But where's the money going to come from? Because just think about this quickly, Bob, and you'll understand it with your economics background. If the tax is implemented, it is not going to be generating money from day one. It's going to take years, decades. So, in fact, we're going to have to be finding, or Labour's going to have to find money somewhere to fund this massive promise, waiting on the vain hope that properties are going to be sold, while a whole lot of wealthy Kiwis say, bugger this, excuse the French, we're out of here. We're off.
What do you say to people who say a capital gains tax is appropriate where you've got someone who's got more than just the home and the batch, more than just the home and the investment property? They're actually got a number of properties. They're actually doing quite well. They're almost a landlord. There's almost a regular business income off it. They should be taxed on that if they're in the almost business of it. Is that a fair place for a capital gains tax? That would be my argument.
No.
What's the argument against it?
The first thing is, if you are earning income off your property, so if you Airbnb them or you rent them out, you are paying tax on that already. Capital gains effectively targets the inflation or the change in the value of your home. That's what they're taxing. They're not taxing anything productive. They're not taxing your business. They're taxing an inflationary change, but only in one direction. So if your house goes up, and again, this is all on the books, if it goes up, you're going to have to pay a tax. What happens if it goes down? So if my property in Hawera, my investment property goes down $100,000, is the government going to pay me? They're going to give me 30 grand? Of course not. Because again, they're only taxing inflationary change. They're not actually taxing something like, as we do, fuel or cigarettes or your business expense or your, PAYE. It's fundamentally different.
Okay, and interesting that they've excluded farms. They're trying to win back the farmers, which was, kind of interesting. Once again, if you have a principle of a tax for a certain kind of wealth generation, like a capital gain, then it should apply across the board. But, it seems to be pick and choose. So is this actually your batch? This is your place in Hawera, is it? I've never visited it. We'll have to go and visit.
It's both. My property's in Gisborne, Hawera.
The National Party have had a bit of fun just with the flip-flopping of it, though. This was the video they posted.
Chris Hipkins has ruled out a capital gains tax or a wealth tax while he's in charge.
Obviously, you've heard that Chris Hipkins, as the Labor leader, has ruled out a wealth tax and a capital gains tax.
Today, the PM went even further, sending a postcard to New Zealand from his Euro trip, saying, under a government I lead, there will be no wealth or capital gains tax after the election. End of story.
This is our capital gains tax policy. So today I'm announcing we will be introducing a targeted tax. We opted for a capital gains tax.
Yeah, the language, targeted tax policy. They just don't want to say capital gains. Anyway, we're going to get lots of that over the next 12 months, so look forward to it.
They feel more emboldened. I know you need to jump on. They feel more emboldened with the polls. But just really one quick point to illustrate the absurdities. You mentioned farms are exempt. So Rachel and I owned, in the post tense, a home. which had chickens. Here in Auckland, urban Auckland, we had chickens, we had bees. At one point, we had a dog. Is it a farm? Could I declare it a farm? Now, I don't know the intricacies of Labour's policies, but, we have to interrogate, and it doesn't matter if it's Luxon or Hipkins when they talk about things. Oh, farms are exempted. Great, my house is now a farm. Brilliant. Thanks very much. Go away, taxman. I mean, who's administrating all of this?
Yep.
It's just, anyway, you can clearly see where I sit on this topic.
Okay, no, good to clarify that. All right, let's continue. New education curriculum has come in, and Erica Stanford has been selling it, although starting to get some pushback a little bit now from certain, I would say, academics. Now, look, I do have a slightly vested interest. I have a family member who's a teacher and said that, look, the staff room, they actually think that a lot of the changes that have been made are very, very good. I did learn a new word today, and I'm trying to remember. Actually, I've totally forgotten the word, so I'm going to play this clip and it will remind me. But apparently they've introduced this new aspect of training into PE, and the academics are very upset and say that it's archaic. It's a form of running. You'll probably know what it is, but you'll see when you hear the word why my ears pricked up.
All Year 8 students would have strict learning guidelines around athletics,
which requires fartlek training and
Yeah, that was the word, fartlek. So do you know what fartlek is?
Sounds like sort of a boost that happens when you're running from your rear end, but that's not what it is.
That's exactly why I had to check it. I thought they're saying this on the news. No, fartlek is is it a Swedish word or something? And it's basically where you run intervals at speed and then slower and then speed and slower. So in other words, it builds up your stamina rather than having rests in between. But apparently, have a listen to what she thinks of them going down this track.
Exchange and relay. Now, this is archaic. We haven't taught explicitly around athletics for years. I'm not saying athletics is a bad context, but I have an 11-year-old son, and trying to get my 11-year-old son to understand fartlek training is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
When her advisory contract ended, she signed a non-disclosure agreement. Now she finds herself listed on the government's website as a contributor to a curriculum she doesn't recognise or believe in.
Many people haven't been able to talk to one another in this process, which has been frustrating, but it also has meant that now we have a very messy and incomplete and incorrect curriculum document.
You can't call consultation when the people on your advisory panels have non-disclosure agreements. That's not consultation.
The draft is now open for 6 months of consultation for feedback from teachers, principals and educators. The Education Minister can expect a torrent of it.
Oh, a torrent of it. Look, I just did, so the fartlek thing just amused me, but onto this, I mean, apparently it's archaic, and teaching kids to change the baton in a relay apparently is just asking too much of PE teachers. So, if that's the academics that are writing the curriculum, no wonder maybe they were sidelined a bit. But I'm interested just to ask you, in the process of this, are some of these writers right to complain about the fact that there may be of a lot of contributors? They may not have seen the full formation. They were just contributing ideas.
Oh, exactly right. I mean, like everything, we're only getting a snippet through the news, but she sounds like a whiner. I'm sorry, if you come onto a consultancy to put some views in, you're just one part, one cog. And so, of course, they can put your name down. That's just part and parcel. I'm not sure what she's complaining about. She ain't the minister. There we go. All the grammarians will now be upset with how I've spoken. But anyway, she's not the minister. She's not the final decision maker. She's just contributing. And actually, non-disclosures, I don't think, are unusual because you'd end up with all these people getting aggrieved and yelling and screaming and making a hash of it. So, yeah, and even that last comment granted by the reporter, there'll be a torrent. I mean, that's leading. It's like leading a witness. I mean, why would there be a torrent? There's really some good stuff. And at the end of the day, just the other point is you don't go, what's your word again? Fat. Oh, it's like a boys' school. What's it called again?
Fat something. Yeah.
Something,
anyway,
no, go
ahead. simply Green says, how is your 11-year-old struggling to understand run fast, run slow, run fast?
Well, that's the point. This is the point. Fartlek, that's it. You're not, as the teacher, meant to go to the student saying, what is fartlek? You would say to the kid, run fast, run slow. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah. Okay, not a lot of sympathy coming from our watchers. Dennis says, let's put him in a corner with a blanket and leave him there. And, here we go. Dee Dee says, Simon's Inner Man is coming out tonight. So there we are. There's a lot of people are having fun with that particular comment. All right. Just in relation now, Erica Stanford, look, I won't play this because she just does respond to the criticism and says, look, a whole lot of people were involved in the process. They all had their input. And now it's gone out for consultation. So there's going to be 6 months of consultation, and that's where everybody can have their say, and that's got to be a good thing. And an example of that, just before we move on from this topic, is what's happened with the relationship, sexuality and education. There has been some major wins for us in terms of that. We've given it a B+, good start, room for improvement, because all the gender ideology and the sexuality identity stuff has been removed from primary schools and intermediate. Sex education only kicks in year 8. And while there's still some problematic stuff around year 8, year 9, year 10, there's actually some really good stuff around consent and boundaries and around safety on the internet, recognising social media, the concerns of pornography and cyberbullying, and also really strong messages against drugs. None of this harm minimisation, drug foundation type stuff of how to do it safely. It's basically don't do it, learn to say no, how to resist peer pressure. So look, some real progress there, and that's come because our supporters, Simon, have sent in their views as parents and families and educators, and the government's listened. And look, I would just say before you comment, what happened there? I would just say, that's a bit weird. Anyway, we'll come back to that one. That Winston Peters is taking rightly some credit for that policy because he has been pushing on getting rid of the gender ideology out of schools. Anyway, your response just to the general consultation process and also the wins on the RSC that we should say, hey, great, let's keep pushing, but great so far.
Yeah, look, I think kudos to everyone who has written in as part of that initial consultation, who responded obviously to the emails that you sent out, Bob, who talked to their local MPs and so forth. I think it shows people, change can happen. It also shows you if you've got some political will. And so, I think we can give credit to Winston there in New Zealand First. But I'd also include Erica Stanford. She is the minister. She could have just, not literally, but figuratively slammed the door on him. But she was actually prepared to lead and front it. So that's, again, political will, actually representing people who spoke out. Look, you're far more expert and gone far deeper. And so I think important for you to share. But I think the encouragement still to people, and we'll certainly be doing this through Family First, is keep submitting now on the consultation. It is only draft. Be absolutely clear the gender activists and others will try as hard as they can, along with the complicit media, to undermine it. So people need to keep speaking. And even once it becomes fully operational, it sounds like the Death Star. Anyway, I'm really having quite the night. Fully operational. People still have to keep an eye on things. You and I have talked over the last 24 hours that you can read the curriculum or curricula and see things you like or not like, but actually activist teachers and others. By the way, that's a small number, but they could still cause mischief. So parents just need to keep chatting. Which, just to throw it back to you, Bob, one of the good wins was that parents need to be informed. Is that right?
Well, parents already needed to be informed, but I think there is, and credit to Erica Stanford on this, and I think also Christopher Luxon in some ways, is that they were very aware that parents needed to be part of the process and parents were feeling left out of it and not knowing what was going on. And so when we were highlighting some of the content, then parents were speaking up and saying, hey, we were never told about this, never knew about it. So the parent voice has become far stronger. And so the documentation, one of the key things it says in the introduction is that parents will be informed. They will know exactly what is being taught. And also they talk about the parent portal, which parents, if you haven't heard of the parent portal, become aware of it because it's one of your biggest friends in terms of school involvement. because that's your online check of seeing what's going on in the school and what your kids are being taught. So, look, yeah, I would say let's give ourselves a pat on the back. There has been huge progress, but expect a response. In fact, it hasn't been in the media, Simon. I mean, we sent out our email blast to 50,000 today, and I haven't seen any chatter from the opposing groups, and they should be very upset by the fact that a lot of their pet projects, the Inside Outs and the Burnett Foundations and the family planning groups, all that stuff has been just completely destroyed, taken out. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Let's see if the media picks it up. Anyway, they're probably just watching to see if Trump is dancing in time or something important like that. All right. Speaking of media, the BSA has released a new report, and they're looking at trust in the media. They did their own polling. The thing was that it basically told us what we all thought anyway. So it hasn't actually told us anything new, but it just said that basically people, they basically want credible cited evidence. They want unbiased reporting. Go figure. Consumers want all perspectives. Well, you won't get that in the media at the moment. And they also want the difference between opinion pieces and news made clear. They don't want misleading headings. So look, there's not a lot in that report that we don't already know. Interesting coming from the BSA. Just before we comment on this one, Simon, just two other graphs that were interesting is the frequency of news consumption. You'll see there that the younger age groups, 18 to 24, 25 to 34, they are less likely to visit news several times a day. They may do it daily or a couple of times a week. In fact, some of them do once a week or less. And you can see up the top there several times a day, it's people above 55 and 65 plus that are more likely to do it. And the other graph that I found interesting was where do they go for their news? Let me just enlarge this one. You'll see there that the 18 to 24 go to social media for their news, whereas the oldest age group go to the 6 o'clock news. So that might be the problem. All you oldies watching the 6 o'clock news, you really need to use some discernment, because a lot of what you're watching simply ain't news. It's opinion and propaganda and narratives being rammed down your throat. But Simon, probably from that graph, you can see why the news media don't like social media. Because look at those figures there. Those are really strong right through to the 35 to 44 age bracket, where they then sort of television then gets a bit of dominance. So, yeah, some interesting results there. Any comment on that?
It's just a continuing shift in mainstream media, which is towards alternative media, social media, and elsewhere. It's not all rosy, as in, we obviously are big using social media to push out our content like we are right now. But I certainly know with some of the younger generations, the TikTok generation, their news consumption is very shallow. In other words, they'll be on TikTok and all they'll see is the headline. And as we know, well, not that I'm on TikTok, but anyway, the salacious headlines, that's the as much depth as they get. And so a lot of it can be misleading. But, the flip side is if you go on to Radio New Zealand or a lot of other channels, you're being fed a very singular diet.
Yeah.
Jumping back to your education topic earlier, had the people complaining, where was the person saying it was good? Earlier in the week, you touched on the drugs issue, all this coverage about how great drug liberalization is, and you probably one of the foremost experts in New Zealand on an alternative view. And has your phone rung yet?
No, not at all. Actually, let's come back to that one in just a sec. A couple of comments. Free-Minded Speech says this government updates the RSE curriculum, another government will update it again, and so it goes on, endless cycle. And I think that is very true. Nancy Margaret makes a good point that parents should have to opt their kids in, not the other way round. And I find it interesting that Bible in schools is now opt-in, and on that basis, our argument is that, well, sex education and all the stuff around that should be opt-in as well. If parents choose to opt their kids in, so be it. And that's good. Anyway, let's just talk about social media, because that's also a bit of a controversial topic. So the bill has been drawn. Where is it? Oh, here we are. So basically, the ACT Party aren't that keen on a social media ban for under 16s. National are, and National may need the help of Labor to get it across the line. Now, I know you've just done an interview with an expert on age verification, which I'm interested to just get a quick summary from you and to tease it for Family Matters. Just two interesting stories that came out recently, because the argument is that the only way you can do this is age verification. That's big government. That's interference. That's breach of privacy. We don't want the government knowing everything we do. But nobody has actually thought outside the box and says, can we protect our kids without government intervention? And what we're actually starting to find now, and the noise has gone very quiet at the moment, because I'm not sure that they can deal with the fact that a solution may be possible without the government intervention. You've got, for example, AI chatbots, which have just announced that they are going to cut off teenagers from having conversations with virtual characters. And of course, there's been this concern about, there was a kid in the United States died because of what the virtual character, I think, encouraged him to take his own life or something like that. I'm not sure. Yeah. So, but this is the thing. Character AI has the ability to know whether the user is under a certain age. And then the other story was yesterday, where Australia is going down the social media ban, whether you agree with the social media ban or not. But the social media companies have now said, okay, they are going to start, deregistering, basically taking the accounts of social media from people under 16, because they know those accounts. They can even number them. So this is the interesting aspect, in that we actually think that big tech is the answer, because we need to simply put some expectations around them. There has been no decent legislation to hold them accountable. They've got away with blue murder. Let's put the onus back on them.
Look, absolutely. Literally, we could talk for hours on this, and you've previewed, actually. We're doing a series of podcasts on this. We already have done some. Obviously, we've had Dawn Hawkins, formerly of Nikosi, talking with her. We've had Melissa Mackay on recently, talking about the Utah experience around targeting app stores. And I've just sat down with the executive director. His name's Ian Corby, who heads up the Age Verification Association, globally recognized. Long and short, there is a way through here, but it's not easy. There are a whole balance of rights in play, from free speech to privacy, right through, of course, to safeguarding our children. And I suppose, Bob, you and I are starting from the position, well, everyone wants to safeguard children. Let's not say people don't. No. But our thing is, there's a, for want of a better phrase, a clear and present danger to young people through the use of social media and the internet at large. And we rely heavily on Jonathan Haidt's work and research, which has been generally well accepted. And so then it becomes a matter of who does it. And you've previewed it well, I think. It actually can be the private sector. You don't need the government. The government can set some regulations to say, look, these social media, internet platforms need to take reasonable steps. That's the Australian law. What's been drawn out of the ballot here in New Zealand by Catherine is good, but it's really a symbolic piece of legislation. It's only 7 pages. It's exceptionally light in detail. But you don't need the government to create yourself a digital ID. Thought I'd just say those 2 words to freak everyone out who's watching. We can actually rely, believe it or not, on the private sector, as we already do. And, a couple of really, really quick suggestions. The likes of Meta, Facebook, even the BBC there, will have 50, 60, 70, if not more, data points on you already. And through that, they can actually work out, by and large, or estimate your age. 7-year-olds are not looking up insurance premiums. They're saying that, you can, again, and maybe I'll just end it with this. You don't have to give over all your data to any agency. It can be just very particular to do with your age, and it also can be in the estimation space. And this really got me, but talking to Ian today, by your hand, the way it is shaped and moved, they can actually estimate to about a 99.7, I think, % accuracy or maybe it was 97% of your age. Now, they're not going to be able to distinguish between a 15 and a 16-year-old, but they can distinguish between a 16 and a 20-year-old just by literally manipulating your hand in front of the camera. This is amazing technology, I think.
Well, the policy director for Meta said the company in Australia would soon approach holders of accounts confirmed to be under 16, about 450,000 across Instagram and Facebook, to either delete their photos and data or they'll store it until they turn 16. TikTok says they'll do the same. No government intervention. The law has just said that it's a responsibility of the big tech to take responsibility. I think it's a good solution. And like I say, every time I go back to people and say, okay, I understand your concerns about digital ID and government overreach, totally on board with that. What about if the government's not involved and we hold the accountability of big tech and the phone goes silent? I'm just not getting responses because I'm not sure there is an argument against that, because we all are concerned with the suicide, the violence, the sexual content, the pornography, the cyberbullying, the explicit views of Charlie Kirk being assassinated, splashing across social media in front of our kids. We're all concerned about that. Yeah. So I think we have a solution. So yeah, I'm much more hopeful than I was, but I'm just glad we've had the conversation about it. That's been the big turning point, I think.
I think so. And again, it's a bit self-indulgent for us on Family First, but I really do encourage people to check out the podcasts we've done in this space and the ones that are coming up, because actually it shows you there are options. You may, as viewers go, don't like those options either. And look, that's perfectly fine. But there are options out there which have a very light touch of government. Yes, governments like in Australia and the US and elsewhere will have to pass laws to say, look, there's a requirement, but they don't need to be the holders of your identification. They don't need to hold all the data about you. It can be something as simple as literally age estimation, which is a very low key, but still affects your privacy, but not to the same extent. So, yeah. And look, you nailed it again, Bob. They already know. These tech providers, they already know. After a few weeks, I think it was Ian this morning when I interviewed him, was saying within about 6 weeks, they have an almost perfect, accurate picture of you, your age, your likes, what you like to drink, where do you like to go. They just know it already. Now, maybe that freaks people out. Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, well, I always know they're onto it, because every time you say, oh gosh, it's cold, I'd love to go to Honolulu or something, suddenly all these Hawaii ads start appearing in your feed. So they're listening, and which was actually the point that was made just on that comment that I put up before, which I probably can't find now, from Dean. Your phone camera and microphone is turned on without you knowing, even when on the toilet. That's a bit of a scary thought. Anyway, look, let's continue. I just want to tell people that whenever the drug issue comes up, it is coordinated by the organisations and with the media. And I want to give you just example of that. So earlier this week, the Helen Clark Foundation comes out with a report and says we need to liberalise the drug laws, and the media fall over their heels and talk about it, even though they don't seem to have read the report. And actually it contradicts what they're actually saying, that New Zealanders want enforcement, but they would also like some help for those addicted and who want help. A week before, so Helen Clark Foundation this week, a week before it was the Drug Foundation come out with the same thing. We need to liberalise the drug laws. Just before that, we then have an article talking about, medicinal cannabis, and apparently it's picking on women. Well, no, it's not. It's just that nobody wants to invest in medicinal cannabis in New Zealand because it's not that great a market and it hasn't proven itself. So it's nothing to do with women. It's actually about the business. And now, knock me down with a feather, the Greens want to talk about legalising cannabis again. And here we go. Our favourite friend, Chloe, it's been 5 years of wailing and gnashing of teeth since the no vote won. And so they want to harvest some emails and do a petition. Look, if you haven't figured this out, peeps, this is just a constant campaign. The groups get together and think, okay, let's go for it. 5-year anniversary. You go first, Drug Foundation. Helen Clark Foundation will put out a report. Greens, then you do the petition, and the media are all on side. I get sick of it, but I'm not surprised by it.
There's some stuff you can take. No, I'm kidding.
Do you know what's in this cup? This political playback cup? Actually, a sparkling water. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, that's even fancier, but just still. But look, it is well coordinated. And the other thing I'd add to it, of course, is the media happily plays along, including really just taking their bullet points without interrogating the evidence. Because that first one, as you know better than most, basically was asking questions of people around funding choices, and then took people's funding choices to then extrapolate to say, well, they do and do not support drug use. And it's like, what? Very, very poor. But, the other thing, too, is there's lots of think tanks and groups, we're one of them, never get published or very, very rare. But Helen Clark Foundation, for example, Drug Foundation,
report.
Boom. Every report.
Yep. Okay, that's enough of that one. It's going to get my blood pressure up. The interesting thing is that at the same time as those stories are going on, there's other stories in the media about Northland meth use and how it's just rampant. There's major drug issues up north, and elderly people are scared just with the crime associated with people wanting to get drugs, pay for their drugs, and the effect of when they're on drugs. And that a story in Apotiki where kids were involved with a cannabis grow because it was happening at the house. And I think yesterday on our breaking news episode, we talked about the ex-Green candidate who got busted for growing 80 plants at his home where he lives with his 3 kids. And he was just a bit annoyed that he hadn't registered himself as, a dope grower. So, just one of those stories.
And the fake claims by the Greens that people are going to prison for cannabis use, that's blatantly false. It is just that ongoing. And look, again, you've been at this for decades, Bob. They're just unrelenting. And it can be frustrating, but it's one of the reasons that, Family First exists, why we need people's support, because actually we've got to keep being there as sort of the bulwark, the shield against these constant pushes for change.
Okay, let's just do 2 quick fire ones. Firstly, Te Pāti Māori. Major issues, and obviously, the co-leaders undeclared 2 properties. I'm sure, Simon, if you hadn't declared 2 properties on your parliamentary rules, they would have been camped outside your house, wouldn't they? I mean, with Te Pāti Māori, there's the argument that the media go soft on them because they don't want to be accused of being racist.
Oh, well, look, 100%. I mean, there is some reporting. Obviously, we just put a couple of them up, but it's very, very light touch. I mean, you think about, actually, my brain's gone blank, but, the MPs from other parties, Labour or National, the same would apply to ACT New Zealand First. The media would come after them very, very aggressively. So, that is a very, very light touch. This is actually getting really serious. But also and I think it was actually David Seymour who pointed it out a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but, the Māori party's talked itself a big thing about its tikanga, its kawa, so like its constitution and its systems. Well, that's failing spectacularly. And so now they're off to the colonial courts to try and, that'll be their term, to sort it out. So there's sort of an irony, but it is a big mess. This is what happens when you get radicals together, but it won't affect their vote. Their supporters will be happy, but the big thing is, will the party split? My feeling is they won't allow it because actually that too much risk that actually they'll lose some seats because of it. But anyway, your first point's the right one. Media, light touch.
There is a New Zealand version of the Babylon Bee, which you may have come across, the Whakataki Times, and they always do these kind of very fun, tongue-in-cheek news stories. And they said that, Te Pāti Māori, because, Te Pāti Māori ripped up the treaty bill and then they burnt the foreshore bill or whatever that was. And in their report, they say, co-leader Debbie Ngarewa-Packer says we are dismantling the system. Paper represents bureaucracy. Bureaucracy represents oppression. Ergo, the paper must go. It's just, so if you haven't seen it before, the Whakataki Times, it's very funny, sort of the Babylon Bee of New Zealand. Just one last one. We've got 1 minute on this, Simon. The New Zealand Initiative, they want to do a 4-year parliamentary term, which is a big no from me, by the way, just before you say anything, and they want to add 50 MPs. Comment? That's
you
from
need
you.
Something stronger
Comment?
in your cup of coffee. Your sparkling water. Yeah, look, You and I debated this before. I'm actually comfortable going to 4 years. I think it is too short. I do understand actually why you could have 50 more MPs. I don't think there's a public appetite for it. It'll never fly. But if people can take an objective step back, the workload on MPs, even if you can't stand them, is huge. It is enormous and it's exhausting. So spreading the load. The other thing too is our population is growing. So at some point, it's going to have to expand, but there is no public appetite for it. It would be a brave, if not stupid, government and parliament that agreed to it. But yeah, you and I will continue to politely disagree on the 3 versus 4 years.
I would back a 4-year term if there was an upper parliament or there was binding citizens initiated referendums, just so there was a level of accountability, because 4 years of Jacinda untamed would have been a disaster in my view. So that's an example at any government. But the other argument, Simon, in 30 seconds is what about if you get rid of the level of local politicians, which we've got far too many of, and more central? Is there a merit to that argument?
I'm not so convinced. I think actually, look, New Zealand in some ways is over-democratized, which might sound like a strange thing. We've got so many people elected to different positions. Personally, I think you'd be better returning councils to actually having your elected people run it rather than actually them being the, I don't know, what's the way to phrase it, sort of the cosmetic face, and actually it's the bureaucrats who run things. So no, I'm not so convinced of that. Conscious of time.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you for that. On Monday night, Straight Talk is our 100th episode. So every existing and previous panelist is going to be making a guest appearance. So it's going to be a bit of fun. But anyway, thank you, Simon. Have a great night. Look after your wife. Hope she gets well soon. And to the rest of you, thank you for watching and have a great night.